In every pair of Tecovas boots, you can expect handmade quality, first wear comfort, and timeless Western style. A great pair of Western boots will elevate a casual look or add a refined flair that'll draw both eyes and compliments. Tecovas boots are always made from premium bovine and exotic leathers, and with occasional resoling, they will last a lifetime. The best way to shop for boots is at your local Tecovas store, where you'll be greeted by the smell of fresh leather and a friendly smile. Come on in, grab a cold one, get fitted by a pro, and shop the latest styles. We also offer custom branding and leather stamping if you want to personalize your boots or fine leather goods. As spring makes its way into summer, stay cool in a short sleeve, moisture-wicking pearl snap, or make your own shade with one of their classic straw hats, new in both men's and women's styles. And if you're planning to hit the road, Tecovas' ever-growing lineup of rugged and full-grain leather bags will get you where you're headed in style and are built to last decades. Visit tecovas.com. That's TECOVAS.com, and don't go gently, y'all.
Fishing like a local isn't just about catching fish. It's about connecting with the environment and the people who call it home. It's about hearing the stories and traditions that have been passed down for generations and sharing unforgettable moments with the people you meet along the way. Fishing like a local is having an experience that stays with you forever. And with Fishing Booker, you can experience it too, no matter where you are. Discover your next adventure on Fishing Booker.
Hello and welcome to the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Oswald, and I hope you join me on my quest for knowledge to become a better public land hunter, angler, and forager. Stick with this and who knows, maybe we will learn something together.
We are joined today by my esteemed colleague, Frank Giglio. How's it going, man?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you because before we started recording, I was talking about how I hadn't seen you since 2017 when I actually came out and stayed at your house. And I often think about that because it took us to that awesome spot there by the bridge and we went mackerel fishing, and then we caught so many mackerel. And you were doing a lot of the cooking, and I volunteered to gut them. And I remember gutting something like 87 or 88 mackerel in one sitting, and that was awesome.
I actually forgot about that part. I remember we made the you guys went up to Lubec and came down and you made salt.
Yeah.
But now I remember because we went to Belfast on the walking bridge, and that was probably maybe one of the last times I ever went back to that spot and had any luck, because there was like a 4-year stretch where there was no mackerel to be found in my area, including Belfast. And it wasn't until not last year, but the year before, so 2022, that they like came back, and me and my sons had like the last 2 years have been amazing for mackerel and striped bass. But I used to have such good luck on that bridge in Belfast, and now I'm remembering, like, I remember taking you and your boy there, and yeah, that was great.
Yeah, it was so much fun. In fact, I kind of don't like angling. Like, I really don't think it's that much fun, but that is a lot of fun because it's so just action. There's so much action. You're just constantly reeling and bringing them in.
That's if you get in them. You got to get in them.
Yeah.
If you're in them, it's any day fishing where you get into them, and it's absolutely fantastic. And I mean, you almost break your face with a smile because you just can't stop. And then those are the memories that you think about. It's not the bad days fishing. I mean, even though a bad day fishing is still better than going to work, let's face it. But so let's talk about those striped bass then. So are these like ocean fish that like brackish type, like swim back into fresh water, or what are they, or were they on the?
This is mackerel, which would likely spend their winters, say, in like, I don't know, Maryland, DC area. And then when the waters warm up the coast, Connecticut, where I grew up, has amazing. Long Island Sound has amazing striped bass fishing, and then they just come up all the way up the coast. So this is right off. I'm catching them right off the dock. Primarily where I go fishing, I'm going right off the dock. I'm live lining mackerel. So I catch a mackerel, I put a hook through the mackerel while it's still live, and I throw it off the dock, and I'm literally catching. I've had days where I show up at the dock, catch a mackerel, throw it on the line. You could only keep one striper at 28 inches to 33 inches.
Mhm.
So you can't keep anything below, and you can't keep anything larger than 33. And I've gone there, caught my mackerel, throw it on a hook, put it in the water, literally catch a 28, 29-inch striper within 10 minutes, and I'm off the dock going home.
Wow.
Like literally, I remember I saw a friend and we started chatting, and within 15 minutes, I caught my fish and I was going home.
Is it like a one a day, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. You could one a day. I mean, there's guys that want to go and they want to catch the 40-inch stripers just to catch a big fish, just like you want to catch a large, largemouth bass that you're not going to eat. You're going to enjoy the fight and you're going to put it back. But I'm going there to eat the fish. And thankfully, I have two boys who fish with me. So oftentimes, we have the opportunity to catch, more than one in a day.
Yeah. The only time I really like bass fishing, like largemouth bass or smallmouth bass, it's fun every once in a while, but mostly if I get bored of chasing something else that I want to eat. It's not, or there's money on the line, right? Because let's face it, if there's money on the line, it makes it more exciting and worth it. But other than that, I'm going for like catfish or, panfish or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but a striped bass isn't a bass.
No, I'm not talking about the striped bass.
Yeah.
He was saying you can also catch a largemouth for fun or whatever as well. But yeah, he's going for food. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just trying to clarify in case anybody listening also maybe had that like that thinking. So like a bass and a striped bass, or that's the problem with common names,
Right.
You got especially in fishing world, because like a striped bass is like tastes like a salmon, right?
No, I mean it's white. It's white meat.
It's a white meat.
It's like a sea bass. Yeah, it's like a sea bass.
It's like a firm flesh.
Yeah.
The cool thing, you catch a 20. The size of the fish. You're getting like multiple meals out of it. So it's like the mackerel. If you want to dine on mackerel for a night, you need like 5 or 6 of them to make a meal per person, adult. But a striper, one fillet is going to feed like my family. So it's a good size portion.
So how are you cooking? Yeah. What are you doing when you're cooking the striped bass then?
Depends on the day. I cook for a living. So sometimes my at-home cooking is like the easiest. When you spend 40 to 50 hours a week in the kitchen and then you go home and then you cook for your family again, it's sort of like, what's the easiest possible way to do this? Oftentimes with striped bass is I'll get a cookie sheet and I'll put some oil or butter on it, and I put the whole fillet right on the pan, and then I'll put some oil or butter on top and then throw some herbs on it or some sliced pieces of lemon, and then I just like throw it in the oven. Sometimes I put some veggies all around it. And so just super simple, super easy. Other times, if I was, it was just like me and my partner, and we're gonna, I'll cut a fillet and then I'll cook it in some like brown butter, or just cook it in some olive oil or some butter, like in the pan, and sort of just, sort of how I would do it if I was working in a restaurant. But most of the time, the fish right into the oven, super simple. But I love like olive oil based, almost like a vinaigrette with like lots of parsley, lots of like, right now it'd be chives, because chives are all over the place. So it'd be like chives, a lot of herbs, even like blanched nettle. If it was time of the year where you had nettles and striper fishing don't really go together, but I'll make like a chimichurri with
Ooh,
nettles. And so it'd be like the red wine vinegar, some garlic, a lot of olive oil, a lot of green herbs, and then just like eat that on top.
nice.
Oh,
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I always try and find new and creative ways to cook fish. Try and expand my cooking knowledge, but I'm always still afraid to like push the boundary of something just for the
Yeah,
simple fact that you're limited on how much you have and you don't really want to waste it either.
yeah, I hear you. I was actually sort of similarly to mackerel, which they actually in the last 2 years they've put a limit on mackerel, so you're only allowed 25 per day,
oh,
which that's still a lot. I mean, I have I have a stepdaughter now, so I have basically 3 kids that I take fishing, plus myself. So 100 fish in a day is still a lot of fish. Um, I've gotten really into pressure canning fish,
Oh, nice.
so that allows me. I just when alewives are doing their migration up the rivers right now, and so you go and you net the river. You go net alewives. Alewives are in the herring family. They're like a small fish. Um, and I used, I think it was 56 alewives, made 12 pint jars of pressure canned fish.
wow.
So I did that. I'll do the same thing with mackerel. I mean, pressure canned mackerel tastes just like a canned sardine that you go buy at the supermarket.
Hmm.
Uh, I prefer the mackerel, I think, over the alewives out of the can, but they're great.
What do
So
you,
you,
go
yeah,
ahead.
are you doing that with herbs or just salt or just pure pressure?
It's just the fish, about a teaspoon of. I usually takes about 3 alewives go into each jar. They're cut into thirds, and then a teaspoon of salt. Usually, I just keep them plain. I have done them where I put a scoop of mustard, or I put some tomato sauce, or garlic clove. But pretty much, I just like leave them as is. And obviously, the mackerel, because they're coming out of the ocean, they have a little more salty kind of, and they're oilier than the alewives. They just have a little bit more flavor.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Alewives do, but um, I just love the ability to like have room temperature stable protein that
Yeah.
Hmm.
doesn't like the freezer.
Yep. That's my big thing this year. Especially I'm going so super excited, drew a bison tag, but I started
Oh,
thinking
nice.
about it and I'm like, man, I need way more freezer space than I have.
Yeah,
So I was talking to my wife about like pre-making taco meat and pressure canning it and doing a bunch of
yeah,
other stuff and getting it ready and then like partially doing sloppy joes, but only
yep,
in the tomato sauce and like the mustard and then wait to add like sugar or anything because it seems like the
yeah,
sugar tends to burn a little bit in the in the pressure canner.
yeah. I could see how that would happen. I have a friend who he raises pigs every year, and he pressure cans like the butts and the shoulders, and he just has it like because he kind of lives semi off grid. He has the capacity to use a freezer, but it's not his go-to method. So he pressure cans so much of the meat, and then it's just all stored through the winter.
Yeah.
And he, like opens it up, and I think he even like cans his own barbecue sauce. So it's like take the meat out, add the barbecue sauce, heat it up, and you're good to go.
Nice.
Uh,
Oh man, that's
I
awesome.
mean, you get a bison. I mean, you're talking like hundreds of pounds of meat.
Approximately 400 pounds of deboned processed meat. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like your typical stand-up fridge freezer combo is not going to do the trick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a question for both of you guys. I have a couple years ago, me and Madeline pressure canned a bunch of deer meat,
Hmm.
Yep,
and it ended up tasting like exactly like dog food smells.
I'm sure. Yeah.
It
Uh,
tasted like dog food smells.
yep. And smelled like dog food smells. Like you would open it up, and I was like, holy crap! Like this is legit. Like I just opened up a store bought can of dog
Okay.
food.
So, with that being said, I can it. Okay. I typically tend to not can it plain. Okay. And I
Uh,
always trim off all the tallow because the tallow will give it quite the gamey kind of. It gives it a
Yeah.
gross smell, and especially if it's around a lot of cornfields, Clay. And I know how much you hate those, but it will give it an off taste, and it'll have a gross smell to that tallow. So I always trim off all tallow, just pure meat. Get rid of any type of connective tissue or anything like that to where it's just meat. Put that in the canning jars. And then a lot of times I put a lot of different Italian seasoning herbs in there, maybe even a couple pepperoncinis, and then add my water, salt, garlic, all that stuff, pressure can it. And then all I have to do is dump it into a pan, heat it up, and I've got like Italian beef ready to go, like it came out of the crock pot, even more tender. Yeah.
Yeah. So you concur with that, Frank?
Yeah, I mean, I think venison's strong as it is, and obviously, especially that fat, it's gonna with the pressure canning, because it's under so much pressure, it's taken when you have that fat, I think, included in there, it's just gonna like really impart. I mean, think of dog food, it's pressure canned food, and they're not obviously not going for like beef tenderloin with no fat. So it's whatever their concoction is. So if you add a bunch of venison fat, it's going to just impart that flavor into the canned goods there. So
yeah,
I think adding whatever you can, like I did chicken one year, which obviously it's a different flavor profile, but I raised some meat birds and I canned, over half of them. And it was like, I wanted like almost like a chicken soup base in the can. So it was like the garlic and I think I use a lot of like thyme and oregano. And then they're pretty brothy. And so, right out of the can, they were ready to sort of be soupy. But yeah, venison's just, unless you really aged it well to really mellow out that flavor, I think it's just going to be something that out of the can, it's going to be a little more robust.
Robust. I love that word.
So here's something I want to get your take on then, because I've seen it multiple times on social media. There's something I think it's called Six Ranch Podcast or Six Ranch something or other, and they're hunting guides. And this guy will take an entire hind quarter and hang it. All he'll do is salt it. No curing salt, no anything else. Hang it for like 8-9 months. Slice off that pellicle and just... And he eats it, and he's never gotten sick. He's like, I've never gotten sick. And he's been doing it for like 5-6 years now. And I'm curious on your take. Is that something possible? Is it something you should worry about?
You're saying he hangs it out? Where does he hang it?
Like on his porch.
Yeah, I mean, where does he live?
I believe he lives in Idaho, or if it's not Idaho, it's probably like Washington or something.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a part of so many different like diets over my lifetime. I've done raw vegan for many years. I've tried all the little different diets, and for a while when I was a vegan and I was really into raw food, there's this whole group, a lot of people from Hawaii that were eating like raw meat, like primal, they'd call themselves. There's this guy, his name was Agenus Vonderplanet. He's since passed away, but he had a book. I don't remember what the book's called, but he would take meat and he would chop it up and he would put it into a jar and just let it sit on his counter for weeks on end. And then it would get to a point where like every day you had to burp it.
Yeah.
And you had to go outside because it would basically be like putrefying. And then he would get to a point where he'd take like a sliver of this meat and you'd eat it. And it was all about like basically like building your microbiome and all that kind of thing. And I know people who did it. And definitely in Hawaii, it was people that were doing like the raw dairy, the raw eggs, the raw liver, the raw heart, like raw meat, blending it. Like my partner's daughter will just eat grass-fed beef hamburger right out of the bag. Just eats it. And she loves it. Like that's a snack to her. So just like open up a pack. And I think, it's like I wouldn't age any meat and eat it without knowing that I had the proper conditions to do it. And hanging a meat in Idaho, if he's hunting in the fall, you have lower temperatures. It might be freezing at night, so you're killing bacteria from that aspect because it's freezing. Versus like doing it in Hawaii or Florida,
Right.
where it's like hot and humid and everything wants to grow, including bacteria and molds. And you know, I'm not afraid. Like I'm very much into fermentation, and so over the years I've gotten used to like, well, it has some like greenish mold. That's okay. It just means like I don't have the ideal temperature or environment, and you scrape that off. But if like I raised a pig one year and I tried to make my own prosciutto, and kind of around where like the ball and socket would be, I got crazy amounts of black mold, and that's like, sorry, I screwed up, and that's got to go into the compost.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've seen people where in the restaurants, the fancier restaurants, it's like big now to like dunk cuts of meat into beeswax and then age the meat encased in beeswax, so you're not getting any outside bacteria. I've seen people hang deer legs in like a refrigerator, you know, like a refrigerator that they like gut the whole thing out and then they hang a whole hindquarter and then let it go for like 3 to 4 months, and that it gets encased in that sort of crust, and you cut that away and you have this like beautiful sort of darker colored meat. But it all depends on like, or this guy might be able to handle it because he's a little stronger, and then you have a sample and it like does do you well.
Yeah.
So it's like whenever if that guy was saying like anybody could do this, just freaking hang your meat and wait a bunch of months and then eat it, I'd be a little like nervous. Like depends on the guy or the person, and depends on the environment in which they're doing it.
Yeah. So, I mean, technically, though, you probably could get away with just like celery root ground up powder or something and add that to your salt, or like a curing salt, right? Like a pink salt.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, those types of aging were done before, you know, we had access to like, or the knowledge of like using celery salt, and probably been done before there was like the nitrates. But I think, you know, sort of, I think the pink salts I've gotten a little bit more okay with using. For a while, it was just like, that's not pure, I don't want to use it.
Right.
But it's like a little bit goes a long way, and a little bit to make sure that like your investment of time and money to harvest some meat, if you want to put up like 40 pounds of sausage, I'd rather use like a teaspoon of curing salt to make sure that it's all going to be good versus not using it at all and then possibly like screwing up and having to throw it all away.
Right. Yeah.
You're saying because some people like in the natural food world might view that as being like bad.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
what's wrong with that? I'm always curious, like what do people think is wrong with it?
With the nitrates?
Yeah.
So there was a push for a while there, and I don't know if it's still going on or not, but technically nitrates can be considered cancer causers or something.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's sort of like it's like nitrates would be like the same thing to like MSG. And you have like monosodium glutamate. It's naturally occurring. So it's like when you age Parmesan, it's creating MSG.
No way.
When you cook down tomato sauce, it's like creating MSG. And then you get people like, oh, I ate Chinese food and now I have a headache. They definitely must have used like MSG in the food. But it's like, it's always this thing of like, when something is isolated, instead of having, it's like carrageenan, which is used as a thickener, which is naturally occurring in seaweed. When you eat the seaweed, you get all the trace minerals, you get all the components that carrageenan is one of them. when you extract it out and then use it isolated that's when I think carrageenan is like abrasive to the gut. So it's not considered like a healthy thing to do. Same thing with like iodine. It's like, well, if you have sea salt, you get this 92 minerals, not just iodine isolated out of salt, extracted out of salt. So just eating iodine salt is like not great, but eating full mineral rich salt is like better for you. So all these things, it's like the nitrates, I think it's just something where it's like just not considered the healthiest like add-on. And that's why, but it's also like the amount of celery salt that's used to do what the little bit of nitrate does.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So that's where again it's like, it's like it's one of those things like, yeah,
It's a trade-off.
yeah.
But so you have cured a lot of meat then with that stuff.
I've used it in the past. That's one area that in the recent years I haven't done a lot of, but I went in culinary school. We did a whole butchery program. We made all our own cured meats, and that was in every single recipe. And there's an Amish guy who used to work in fancy restaurants in Chicago before converting to Amish, and he has a hand-powered off-grid charcuterie shop, and he's using nitrates in everything he makes.
Wait. I can't let this go. You know somebody who converted to Amish?
Yeah.
Okay.
This guy's cool. This guy's as cool as it gets.
Yeah.
There's a restaurant that used to be in Chicago called Trotter's. And at the time, in like the early 90s, Charlie Trotter was considered one of the best chefs in the U.S. His restaurant was considered one of the best in the U.S. And this guy, Matthew, forget his last name, he was like the chef de cuisine at this restaurant. And this is like militant restaurant work. Like you don't talk unless you're spoken to. Everything is yes, chef, no chef, sorry, chef. Like there's no chit chat about like the baseball game while you're working. This is like, you're on it. And he then, he went from like normal guy like you and me to moving to Vermont. He had a butcher shop there. He converted to Mennonite, and then he moved to Maine, and he was living sort of like an hour and a half above me. And then he converted to Amish. And basically, like the Amish, especially in Maine, there's a couple different groups. There's one group sort of in the town that I used to live in, which is Thorndike, and Unity. There's like 25 families there. And he was living north, and they basically moved him down here. He opened up a charcuterie shop. They use his whole refrigeration as an ice house. So they all harvest ice in the winter.
That's
He
awesome.
has this ice house. His grinder's hand crank, his stuffer's hand crank. He uses the old school like 1900s cash register. That's all just like the old school buttons and stuff. And he's got his beard. He's got his hat. They do the haircuts for him. They make all their own clothes. And he's as Amish as it gets.
With no buttons.
No buttons.
No buttons.
And he makes incredible like smoked cheeses and deli meat. And sometimes he'll have like smoked ribeyes. He makes incredible food.
I'm sorry.
He was like,
no zippers, just buttons.
Yeah, it's like the flap over. Pretty.
But that's awesome, though. You know what? Like, good for him. There's days when I feel like just saying heck with it all and like just let's unplug from it all, right? And he went and did it. Good for him.
He gave it all up. He said he used to be like a car collector. He's like, I used to have over a dozen cars. I used to gamble. I used to drink. I used to do this and I used to do that. And then one day I realized he was in the military for several years. And then he found God and literally just like gave it all up.
No way.
Yeah.
But now he makes a better Amish than the regular Amish.
I mean, he's a good Amish. He's a good Amish.
Um, yeah. So the Amish, there's a couple different factions. You ever seen like an Amish fight break out?
No.
No. Um,
Over here, they're they're like so close to just being like us.
yeah.
But like the other day, I go every Friday. I go pick up milk for the farm I work for, milk, cream, yogurt, kefir, and and I go and they have an ice house and my order's right there, and I leave a check, and they were mowing the lawn, and they had like a almost like a zero turn mower, but they had taken apart all the mechanisms to like power motor to move. The motor was still attached to make the blades turn, but they had welded an attachment and they were getting moved
Horse.
by a horse.
Yeah. Yep.
And
I've
it's like
seen that.
at first I'm like, why don't you just go full swing and just do it? But then it's like their whole thing is like when you're going at a horse's pace, you can only go as fast as the horse will let you. So it's not like I got to get the lawn mowed so then I can go get this thing done and then I can go do this thing. It's like for the next however many hours, I'm mowing the lawn. And that's what I've noticed. Like they don't drive, but they accept rides and they'll hire somebody to like drive, deliver their milk. And then when they plow the snow, they have a motor to move the blades of the snow blower, but it's moved by horses and so on and so forth. And it's like they're not looking to do everything as fast as they possibly can.
Yeah.
They're more tuned in to everything they're doing. And that's like something that's like, yeah, you're close to us, but you're not there. And they use like air compression to do power most of the stuff they do. And they'll have like rechargeable batteries for lights that they just charge through that air compressor, however they do it. But it's like they're almost there, and you're like, man, you're just like one step away from just being like anybody else. But they're not. They're like taking it as far as they can, and it's something to be said because like I see what happens on this farm on a daily basis where I work, and it's like you do one task and you go to the next task and you go to the next task, and somebody who might be slow, you're like, damn, I should just do it myself because I could just get it done fast. And it's like they're not on this pace to just constantly do more and more. Every Thursday, they close down all of their shops and businesses and they have a community day. So if you're building a barn, every guy in the community is coming to your house to build the barn, and all the women are coming to like make lemonade and make food and keep kids occupied. And your barn's going up in like 3 days.
Yep.
If I needed a barn done, I gotta get a band, I gotta get some cannabis, I gotta get some alcohol, food, and it's like half the people I ask are gonna be like, "Sorry, man, I'm busy."
Busy. Yep. Can't do it. I could help you
And
for an
so,
hour. Yeah.
yeah, so it's just this why, I'm not looking to like go there, but there's something to be said of like, man, and they're not like, I think if you think of like Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where they're like true, deeply, you know, true Amish. Like there's just so many different levels of Amishhood, I guess you could say. But here it's like a little more lenient. They're all, they're like super friendly and fun and nice, and I used to hang out with them when I would go get my milk and whatever. But yeah, it's something to be said of like, man, you guys are like, you got some weird haircuts and you don't allow music, which is kind of weird, but like, um, they're doing some cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some by me where when I was a kid, they used to have all propane and everything was ran on like propane.
Yeah.
And then like you said, they had air power, and then
Yeah.
the air power would run all their power tools and everything. They'd have entire like compressors that would do one thing, and then a compressor would turn a motor, and then it would turn
Yeah.
something else. And that's how all their saws and everything worked. And then like later, I think they converted it to hydraulics. But
Yeah.
they recently converted. I noticed the last time I was there, just recently, that it's starting to go solar. And they've got all these
Yeah,
LED lights everywhere that are
Yeah,
solar.
they're using a lot of solar
Yeah.
around up here, and it's basically like this whole town. Basically what they do is like everything they need to run their community, they have a business selling it. So
Yeah.
it's like they make sheds, They have a tack shop. They have like a little health food store. And granted, they don't eat well. Most of them don't eat well at all. They want all the standard American food. They grow their veggies and stuff, but they're still eating like crap. And a lot of them I talk to, they like have major health concerns because they want the hot dogs and the Doritos and the Coca-Cola. Uh, and so it's this weird mix, but it's like they have a bike. They all ride bikes, so they have a bike shop. You can go get your bike fixed, and they have a small engine repair shop, and they have the dairy. Like they sell everything they're utilizing. So it's like you have to buy 20 cases of this thing. You might as well sell 10 of them. So they have all these different shops for everything, and it's all cheaper than your average hardware store. They used to fix my generator, and they would tell me how they did it. And like next time, if this thing happens, just do this, and you'll fix it.
That's cool. Yeah.
So they're honest, good-natured people.
Wow, that's amazing. So I want to segue us to trapping.
Yeah.
Because you when I came out there, you didn't used to be a trapper, and now it looks like over the years you've just gotten heavier and heavier into trapping. So how's that evolution happened? And like you're doing it for the meats, or are you doing it for furs, or both, or what?
A little bit of both. I've when you came to my house, and even 4 years ago, I knew zero about trapping. I'd never seen really any trapping equipment. It was not something I ever thought I would ever do in my life. My kids, both of my boys, Wilder and Sonny, I bought them their lifetime, before they were 6 in Maine, I bought them their lifetime hunting bow, rifle, and fishing license. Lifetime trapping license was another option, but it was like, I don't need that one. So I passed it up. And my son, Wilder, who just turned 13 in April, he was 9 years old, and he would just go on YouTube, and he was like super into like many YouTube guys. And he had a couple different guys that he used to watch. A lot of them were sort of down south, and he just watched these guys that were like trapping, and they'd do these like wild food weekends. They'd go, to an island, and they do all these different things. But this one, I think it was like Coon Creek or something like that. He was like just loved just watching these guys like skinning animals and trapping them. And just one day he's like, I want to be a trapper.
That's cool.
Like, I was like, okay, what do I have to do that? Thankfully, this gentleman I know who's in his 60s, he hadn't trapped in over 40 years. He ended up having like crates and crates of gear, and he basically just like handed it to us.
Wow.
And then the first thing we did was we went to a fur auction. And that was the first thing I did. I went on to like the Maine Trappers Association page, saw there was an auction. I didn't even know what it was. I thought it was like people bring their furs and you can go buy them. I was like, oh, I'll go buy a coyote pelt. That sounds cool. And then we get there, and I realized like everybody who tried this would have been, I think, in the fall. Everybody who trapped, no, this would have been in the spring. So this is like everybody who trapped and didn't sell their pelt furs in the winter. Usually right around Christmas time, there's an auction, and it's for, Christmas money, basically. This point, nobody's getting rich on fur.
No.
20-something years ago, you used to make some money. Now, unless you have specific things, you're not really making any money. Or you go hard and you trap 200 beaver, which there were some guys this spring did that around me. But also it's still barely paying off. So anyways, we go to this auction. Everybody brings their dried pelts. There's 2 to 3 fur buyers, and they're basically going through all each person's accumulation of furs is called a lot. and they go lot to lot, and then they bid, and the highest bidder takes the fur. And so we went there, and just the people were like, in where I live, I'd say 80+% of the people who trap are over 60 years old.
Holy moly.
And so it's totally old. Like me, I'm going to be 46 this month. They call me a young fella. I'm a young man, and especially with my son, they're like so pumped to see any kid under 20 showing interest in trapping, because it's basically dying out.
Yep.
And in Maine, there's so many rules and regulations where, especially because we have lynx and they have these new rules and regulations. But anyways, he basically was like, he won a couple traps at these auctions, 50-50 raffles. We were given a bunch of traps, and then all of a sudden we realized we had muskrat in our pond at work, and he trapped one of them. There was 3. He got one, and the other 2 finally left. But he trapped it. He was 9 years old, had his little conibear trap, like a 110, stuck a carrot on there, and he freaking got his little muskrat. And then I realized I had to get my license, because as a 9 years old, you have to be supervised. So I went and took my trapping safety course, and then I've been very fortunate. Where I work is where I do a lot of my trapping, and my boss owned like a couple 100 feet of lakefront, and he has this little tiny island that's technically his, and beaver built this huge lodge connected to the island, and they're basically coming across the little channel, and they're eating trees and dropping trees on his property. So all of the first beaver that we were trapping were right on my boss's property where I work.
Huh.
And so it was just this very easy evolution of very easy, it was right there. I drive 1 mile, I'm on the water, we're trapping right there. And it just, for me, it's become fascinating because I'm learning so much about the Maine, fur bearers, and I knew very little about beavers, and now I'm learning so much about them, and then realizing their fur is incredibly soft. I've got a little collection. We've sold some furs. I've gotten some furs tanned, and now we can get mittens made or make a hat. Their meat is amazing, and their back hindquarters are one leg feeds me and my 2 boys.
Mhm.
And 2 legs feeds my partner and her daughter and us. So it's a lot of meat, and it tastes like beef. I've pressure canned beaver in the past, and that was delicious.
Sounds good.
And yeah, basically just learning a ton, and something that I've learned, and over the years I've been able to. The last couple of years have been really good deer hunting for us and turkey hunting, but you're trapping while you sleep.
Yep.
And so that is something that I've really enjoyed, because it's not you want to go fishing, you got to put in the time. You want to hunt, you got to put in the time. I've hunted so many years of my life. I've hunted over 20 years, and not until last year did I ever shoot a deer.
Oh man.
Holy moly.
I've shot one and lost it years ago, but I've hunted so hard in the past where I'm I was literally out for 28 days or 26, 3+ weeks of the hunting season, month-long season here. I was out every morning, most nights, and didn't see a thing. And so now that I'm getting successful with that, trapping is you set your trap, and that you could catch a beaver at any time of the day or night.
Yeah.
And so there's laws. If you're, land, I do some land trapping, which, for coyote and fox, which is taken a little more, it's a little more difficult than the beaver trapping, I'd say. I've caught 2 skunks in the process of trying to catch a coyote. But I'm open to I'm open to eating raccoon meat if I trap raccoons. I'm open to eating bobcat if I trap a bobcat. And I know people that eat skunk and they eat the muskrat, and they'll eat basically like they eat the coyote, they eat the fox. And I have some parts of me that's like, I don't really want to eat a skunk.
I don't really want to eat a coyote, but I'm curious just to try it.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
watched
dogs eaten in so many other cultures that why not, right? I mean,
yeah, I watched a meat eater video where they cooked the coyote, and yeah, it was one of those things like I did it because I want to try it. I don't know that I would necessarily like seek it out to want to keep doing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the cool thing about like, trapping the average person, if you're looking at the cool thing, the one thing well, many things I like about trapping. One is like fishing has become like cool. Hunting is cool. There's like influencers in the hunting world and the fishing world. There's like all sorts of um, camo companies out there. Like you could always buy more guns. You could always buy more fishing rods. There's always the latest. You could spend like I see people that I know that hunt, and they're spending so much money to go harvest an 18-pound turkey. It's
Yeah.
like you spent $500 or more because your Benelli shotgun costs over 1,000 to go kill a 19-pound turkey. That's like
Yeah.
4 meals,
Right.
if that. Where trapping is like, it's helpful to have a pair of waders. I have a pair of hip waders, so they cost me about $150, and I got a pair of rubber gloves. Otherwise, I just need warm clothes. It doesn't matter if I'm dressed in full camo or hot pink. It doesn't like you don't, and all the gear that you're using, like we've had to make modifications based on the rules and regulations to make it more humane. But like the same conibear trap that I'm using to trap a beaver now is the same one that like Davy Crockett used. And so it's not something that could become this like there's no way to like capitalize off of it really, which I like that aspect where like I got the First Light camo for hunting and I've spent thousands of dollars on that company. I love it. It's super comfy, but it's like I don't need another friggin' liner shirt. Like I got one. But like they got new sales, they got new patterns. You're always trying to like buy more. But trapping, it's just like you need some basic stuff, and that's it. And so like it's very minimal in that regard, which I think is cool. Two, again, you're working directly with the state biologists because they're using all the same tactics to trap and research the animals. Like people say, trust science. Like we're working directly with the scientists, and our work is what allows them to make decisions based on the numbers and when they want to make changes to the laws, they're working directly with us to get our feedback. And we have to use these like exclusion devices for lynxes. So you basically have your trap inside a box so their hand can't go in. You used to be able to like find a dead branch, stick a trap on it, put some bait there, and any animal that decides to come up that branch potentially get killed. That could be your cat, your dog, or any animal, birds, ducks. Like now you have to put them in these boxes, and they're just you have to check traps. Either land trapping, it's every day, water trapping every 3 days. So there's all these rules and regulations that are put into place. But it's just super. I don't know. I think it's just like super cool. I enjoy it so much. I love spending time with these old fellas who are like most of the guys that I meet that trap, they've been doing it since they were a little kid. And this is like who they are. I'm a trapper. And it's like it's so enriching, especially being in like a homeschool community in Belfast, Maine, to go hang out with these trappers. Like we just put an event on last month and it was like I was there for most of the weekend, but my kids were there for Sunday, and it was like they just go hang out with these old folks that want to just teach them everything. They're like, "You want to learn about how to trap mink? here's my number. Give me a call. I'll take you and your son out. I'll teach you everything you need to know about trapping Maine.
That's
Sweet.
awesome. Yeah,
And
that's a
it's
good
not often
community.
it's not like that with like hunting or fishing. Like I know people who catch striped bass and they'll post a picture of it and they blur out the entire background of their fishing boat. They don't want
Yeah.
people to even like have it's like the same fish ain't going to be right there, but they don't like most hunters aren't going to take you with them. They're not going to tell you where they hunt. Like it's so private. We're trapping. It's like I will literally teach you everything. I'll take you out on my trap line and you can spend an afternoon with me and I'll take you to every, my line. And there's guys that drive an hour and a half to go check their traps all the way, when they're there's a couple guys this spring. This one guy who's the vice president, of the Maine trappers, he had 209 beaver he got this spring.
That's awesome.
Holy moly.
That's
and
cool.
you're getting about $30 a pelt.
Yeah.
So not a ton of money, but
Enough to probably make it about a wash, maybe.
yeah.
But not worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying not worth your time, but not worth unless you're, super looking forward to the meat, which I don't see why you wouldn't want to eat anyway. But, I mean, there's a lot of guys. There's a couple guys that I know that used to trap 200 coyotes, even 300 coyotes in a year in a trapping season. And I think it was like last year, maybe the year before, finally he said, you know what? He goes, I'm spending way more on gas and time and energy and everything to even do it than it's worth to do it, because I mean, what's a coyote? It's like $6, $7 a pelt right now.
Much. Yeah, right now, like male fisher cats and bobcats are like the most prized pelts here in Maine. I know the market changes frequently, but 2 years ago, like the beaver castor, which that's like their scent glands. That's how they make like fake vanilla, is with castor.
No way.
Yeah. It actually smells like they make a deposit. They'll make a mound of mud and then they'll like deposit this castor, and it smells like it has a very strong like anise flavor.
Fishing like a local isn't just about catching fish. It's about connecting with the environment and the people who call it home. It's about hearing the stories and traditions that have been passed down for generations and sharing unforgettable moments with the people you meet along the way. Fishing like a local is having an experience that stays with you forever. And with Fishing Booker, you can experience it too, no matter where you are. Discover your next adventure on Fishing Booker.
In every pair of Tecovas boots, you can expect handmade quality, first wear comfort, and timeless Western style. Tecovas boots are always made from premium bovine and exotic leathers, and with occasional resoling, they will last a lifetime. The best way to shop for boots is at your local Tecovas store, where you'll be greeted by the smell of fresh leather and a friendly smile. Come on in, grab a cold one, get fitted by a pro, and shop the latest styles. Visit tecovas.com, that's TECOVAS.com, and don't go gently, y'all.
And it's not, it's like this weird sack, and you dry them, and then they were getting like $75 a pound for that. But now it's worth about $25 a pound. Yeah. So the market's like, but like a muskrat pelt is like $2.
Wow.
A skunk pelt, you might get like $13. Raccoon, $15. A big, large coyote can probably go up to like $40 or so. But like, yeah, most of it, these guys are doing it because it's who they are. They love doing it, and they can't imagine like not doing it. And a lot of them, because most of the guys I meet aren't like super wealthy, they have to make that decision of like, when the gas is more, it's like people who, there's a guy around here that used to he was like a full-time mushroom forager. And he's like, I forage based on like, if I'm spending more money on gas than what I'm getting back for my mushrooms, then it's not worth trying to go 45 minutes out of the way, especially when gas prices go sky, over $4 a gallon. Then it's like, well, driving 45 minutes out and then back to go harvest 5 pounds of black trumpets, for $15 a pound, like that's not really worth my time.
Yeah.
So
Well, let me assure you that if you're selling your black trumpets for $15 a pound, then you're doing something wrong.
yeah,
What are
Um,
black trumpets going for, Clay? I've never found a black trumpet. Like I've kept an eye out, looked, never found one.
yeah. I don't know what they go for, but I'm gonna guess that.
probably in the 20s.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess it's gonna be like 25, $30 a pound. I mean,
That's about what
like,
morels are. It's about $20 a pound.
are you kidding me? Do you know how much they were selling morels for
No.
this year?
What?
Okay, so Michigan has the Morel Festival.
Yeah.
We've got this huge Morel Festival. They're selling them for 60 to $80 a pound.
What?
Yeah.
What?
There's a guy, yeah. There's a guy at the farmers market here in my town. He's a local forager. He's finds tons of mushrooms. I mean, he's like a really, really good mushroom forager. He was selling those little blue farmers market trays,
Yeah.
probably a quarter pound, $20.
That's
Yeah.
insanity.
And he was selling out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was skunked on black trumpets. I did a race years ago. It was actually with Daniel Vitalis and his old girlfriend. It was one of those like the Tough Mudder races.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And it was right outside of Portland, Maine. And I was running and I was kind of close to the finish line. And all of a sudden I looked down and it was like littered with black trumpets. And that was the first time I ever saw him. And I was basically like, I'm not going to win this race. I should just drop out and just start picking the mushrooms.
Absolutely.
And then I'd never found him again. And then a buddy of mine, like, would have been 3 years ago. He's like, I got this spot. He's like, it's been raining. Like the black trumpets are going to be up. I just know it. And we had to drive like 30, 40 minutes. He's like, we're going to go down this trail. We have to cross a little creek. And then it's going to be a gradual incline, like a sharp left and then a gradual incline. And if they're there, they're going to be all over that incline. And sure enough, we got there and they were just like, boom. And it was like, I finally like, here they are. This is what they are. And every fall since then, well, it's only been 3 years, I've hit the jackpot. It's been right on the property where I live. And I've filled several gallon jars the last 3 falls, dried, of black trumpets. Like when they're on, they're just on. And I've just hit these one spot right off of a blueberry field behind me. It's gradual, little tiny hill, and then they just litter the flat part. And now it's like I could definitely see, if you don't have the eye, how you could easily just bypass them. But then once you know what you're looking for, they're just everywhere.
Maybe that's what happens to me. I don't know. For the longest time, I had a hard time finding chanterelles, and now it's like they just pop everywhere, and I see them. If you're in the right terrain.
Hey, Frank, when you find your black trumpets, do you also find them associated with yellowfoot chanterelles?
Yes. And that's like the last several years, it's been like there's one little patch of chanterelles, and then the yellowfoots are like scattered all over.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And never heaping amounts. Like in one go, you might get like 2 of those little blue trays you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I've never found like, a lot of them, but the trumpets will just be like all over the place.
Okay.
And I've gotten where I just use like the little clippers, like how when I used to like clean my cannabis, and I just clip them so I don't get any dirt. They're like ready to go right when I take them out of the woods.
Yeah.
So I don't go back and clean them up later.
I've got a spot. Actually, we just bought a house a year ago, and I'm about 4 minutes away from this spot that I've been going to for many, many years.
Yeah.
And it is our fall black trumpet and yellowfoot chanterelle spot. And I mean, they grow quite literally up until like ice on the ground.
Wow.
And sometimes Madeline's been out there harvesting like the day after we've gotten like snow, and then it melts, and then she's just out there picking these mushrooms. It's like freaking November, and
Wow.
you're in your yeah. They're awesome, but very, very plentiful on the rainy years.
Yeah.
So this year should be
Yeah.
a good year. Because
La
here
Nina.
it is insane the amount of rain. It's like every time we get a rain, it's an inch and a half of rain. It doesn't matter if it was 2 days ago or one a week. Whatever that rain, when it comes in, it's an inch and a half. It's insane.
The lizard people, man, they're spraying our skies and making it rain.
Lizard
No.
people.
So, back to the trapping part here, really quick. You said something about raccoon. I accidentally trapped a raccoon, and it's really good. I gotta say, I didn't think that I was gonna like it. I accidentally caught a raccoon 2 years ago in a beaver trap, and I don't know how, but I took it home and cooked it up, and it was really good meat.
Yeah, I think raccoon would be, and it's really interesting because I don't know if they're like mating right now and they're moving a lot, but in the last week I've seen like 4 roadkill. So they just happened, like I've just been seeing them all over the roads. But yeah, I think raccoon lends itself to being, one of the like top tier eating animals for under the trapping belt, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised they got such a bad name because when you look back at all the anthropological records of the past, there was not that many raccoons because as soon as people found them, they were like, "Oh, I'm eating this thing,"
Yeah,
Like it was a food that oftentimes women would harvest, like native women,
yeah.
because they could just find a raccoon tree and just like hatch it into it and just pull out the raccoons. So, I don't know. We're weird though. We do everything backwards now, like
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what were you gonna say, Frank?
Well, I was just gonna say another element to trapping that has been super cool is just like learning. When you kill a deer or you skin, I've done so many sheep. Just like you go down the belly and you cut through the legs, and then you have this big spread out. All the pelts, like beavers, are skinned circular, which is the only animal you skin like that. And then all the other ones are sort of cased, so you end up with like the whole body length, different than how you would skin a deer or a sheep or a goat. And it's been like I've always loved animal butchery, and this element of like skinning the animals and fleshing the pelts, like it's just another element that I like enjoy a lot. And so it's just I wouldn't have any of these skills or any of this knowledge if I wasn't actually like partaking in trapping itself.
Yeah. Is your son still really deeply involved?
Yeah, he morphs. He's a teenager now. He's like super into RC cars and building planes and cars, boats. But when the trapping season, like all the hunting and the trapping and the fishing, like when it's on, he's in it. He's not so much like we turkey hunted opening. We couldn't do youth day, so Monday was our first day of the season. He shot 2 turkeys with 1 shot, and I got my tom like an hour later, and then I shot another one later in the day. So our turkey season was done in 1 day.
That's cool.
And then he shot his first deer last year. And like once I think like he got his deer and he was like very content, very proud of himself and very happy. He wasn't like, I need to go out every single day because I want to like harvest more. This was in Kentucky. We drove to Kentucky. And I think with trapping, he gets like, he'll have a streak where he wants to do it and he gets a couple beaver and then he's like, I'm good. I got like my 5 or 6. Like, I don't need 20 of them. And he definitely like, he likes putting the trap. He likes setting the trap. And he wants me to go check them because he's at his mom's half the week. So I do have to go by myself. But he'll skin them. He wants me to do like the fleshing. So he has the part he like But if there's an accumulation, he'll do like one or two, and then it's like, it's all on you, Dad. Like, he's definitely not someone who like he wants to do every single one. But he has I mean, for a 13-year-old kid that basically we were sort of self-taught, he learned a lot. I do everything with like a scalpel now. I like really like using a scalpel. Um, he's learned so much just from watching guys on YouTube. And he's like, Dad, that's not how you do it. You gotta do it like this. Jeremy from Cold Creek, whatever, says you do it like this. I'm like, all right, fine.
Nice. So when you use your scalpel, do you like actually resharpen your scalpel a couple times?
No, they get like once it starts giving drag, I have a bag of like.
So I found that you can actually get way more life out of them, and I showed a taxidermist friend of mine, and he's like, "No way! I throw these out like all the time." So if you take a strap, like a piece of leather, and put it on like a piece of MDF, a really really smooth board, and glue a piece of leather with the grain side up, and then on the other side, the grain side down to where it's the smooth side of the leather, and put some polishing compound on it, and just go real quick over the rough side, and then go over the smooth side, like just 3-4 strokes. You would be surprised how much sharper it gets by doing that, to where you're like, holy cow, oh yeah, man, this thing cuts great again. And you can do that like twice before it gets super dull.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
My girlfriend worked at a meat cutting taxidermist shop for a couple seasons, and she was mostly like cleaning the deer faces.
That's tedious.
Yeah. And I mean, they would have like a little plastic seltzer bottle that they would drop all the Sharpies into, all the bent. And I mean, I'm sitting there watching her, and in the course of like 20, 30 minutes, she's going through like multiples.
Yeah.
And once there's a little drag, she's like, time for a new blade.
Yep.
Wow. Does it get, for both you guys, you've both done this with the Sharpie? Or sorry, I mean with the I don't know. Yeah. Is it like hard because it's such a small blade?
No.
No, I mean,
in fact, I butcher all my animals. Yeah.
Huh. Really?
So I use a Havilon, which is like a longer, like what's that, like a size 7 or something scalpel blade. Like, but I use a Havilon or a Gerber, like little foldable, changeable blade to butcher an entire deer. I'm talking even when I quarter it up, I'm breaking it down, even the joints and everything with that little blade. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially like for me with some of the animals when you're going around the face, like it's just easier for me to have that little, it's like holding a pen. It's so much easier for me to go around the face than using like a large blade and trying to make sure that you don't accidentally go through. Because with trapping and those pelts, especially like the more you mess up, the less, your quality goes down.
Yeah.
And potentially if you're going to sell them, like the less money you're going to make. So you want to be like, you want all your cuts to be nice and clean. And so for me, I just find like it's just a smooth, like when you put a brand new blade on it, I mean, that thing, it's like cut hot knife through butter.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
I've gotten a few stitches from them in the past.
Yeah.
I have, the biggest problem doing heads on trapped animals, like the beavers and the raccoon. And I'm never trying to sell them, so I never cared, because like they're just furs for my house.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see if I was like actually trying to sell them. I mean, the faces are often mangled on the beaver. I normally get to like right about here, and then I just sort of cut it off.
Yeah.
And I just leave this like muzzle of fur because I'm like, I'm not dealing with that.
I find that I screw up the eyes. Like, I always screw up the eyes when I'm trying to get in there. Like, I end up slicing through like the membrane, like right by the eyelid or something.
Yeah,
because it's so thin.
I picked up a roadkill beaver, and I ended up like making the eye hole like twice as big. Like, damn it, that one doesn't look great.
That's what I do. I find myself doing that a lot. Yeah, coyotes and stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Luke caught a coyote or a coyote, however you pronounce it. He caught one this year. What trap do you use, Frank, for when trying footholds?
Yep. And those, I think, like the I'm trying to think, like the Duke 495 or something. Like, I don't remember the
Yeah,
number.
like close to a number
Uh,
7 size or whatever. I mean, it's
yeah,
the bigger one, but it's not the
yeah.
biggest. Yeah.
And yeah, it's like we're using my son actually makes the bait. He's been making bait. So a lot of the beaver carcasses, a lot of these guys, they don't eat the meat. They're just selling it to people who make bait or lures. And so yeah, basically around the farm, we have chickens, we have sheep. Like there's coyotes. I'm on 75 acres and I'm next to like 1,000 acre plot. There's coyotes everywhere. And I'm still like this year, I think we got the closest. They were coming in and they were scratching, but they just weren't going close enough to actually setting off the trap.
So are you doing
Here,
like a dug set to where it's got to go into the hole, or
they're gonna walk over. Basically, you're like digging a hole and then you're sifting.
yep.
Because here in Maine, you get the first couple of weeks of the season. I think it's in the beginning of October or maybe even earlier. It's early fox and coyote season. Anything else you catch, you have to release. Well, sorry. If you catch a fisher cat or a bobcat, you have to release it live. But if you catch a skunk or a raccoon, you can kill it. But we're dealing with freezing temperatures for most of our fall trapping season. So you make wax
Yep,
dirt.
wax dirt. Yep. So
Yeah.
it doesn't
So
freeze
you're
up. Yeah.
yeah. So you're digging your hole, you're putting your trap in, you're sifting the wax dirt over it, and then basically you're hoping that they're gonna like stick their paw down, smell your bait, the hole where the bait is, and you're just trying to like lure them in, and then you have like some, you're making some mounds and some distractions to sort of lure them over to a certain area. But this guy, Bud, who's been sort of like my mentor, he's like, they're smart. They know you've been there before you know they've been there. Like some people like have gloves for setting the trap, and they have gloves for putting the bait on. Some people use knee pads. Some people are bringing cardboard out. Like some people are extremely particular in how they set because coyotes' noses are, it's a dog. They smell.
Yeah.
They know what's up.
It was my first time actually trapping them, and I had a little bit of difficulty at first. I actually first got a raccoon, a toe of a or finger of a raccoon, and then the rest of it, like it pulled it off and it left its finger in there.
Oops.
And then I had a couple more that were set off, and I didn't know whether it was a coyote or not. But then I started noticing there was coyote tracks around one of my dugout sets.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I need to like force it to go one way. So I put a log that was like a 15-inch log in front of it and a couple pieces of branches on the side. It wasn't until day 15. I counted the days. It was day 15. And finally I got one in that set. But it was after kind of my scent went away and it got comfortable with that set to where it forced it to go in the one direction. It had to put that paw down. And that was it. Yep.
And there's this guy in Maine. He traps the fall in Maine, and then he goes to Kansas, and he traps. He's hired to trap at like the feedlot.
Oh yeah, cattle. Yeah.
And he got over 500 coyotes last year. Most of the coyotes that he's getting off these feedlots, they're just kind of like mangy and they're not healthy. Like they're just dumb. But he's basically just the service for these cows. But I sat in on a little class with him, and he's like, once you set your trap, you leave it alone. You don't rebait it. You just like binoculars, go look, see if there's anything there. Otherwise, like leave the thing alone. It's like it could take multiple days till the coyotes know you have anything there. Then they might not come. Like just leave it. And that's like a thing we would go, we'd go there every single day, like standing up spot, like looking to see like, what the heck? Why is this happening? But yeah, bobcat is I think what I want to catch the most. And you make a whole different type of set to catch a bobcat. But it's all fascinating. You got to like truly, I mean, it's sort of like hunting. It's like, you got to be a part of their environment, and do the thing. You got to know their habits. You got to know their movements. Like, it's very rare you just walk through the woods, doop-de-doo, and then a deer walks by and you take a shot. And it's like you got to put in your time and you got to be part of the landscape. And then same sort of thing with trapping. So it's cool. You're trapping while you sleep, and yeah.
So trapping while you sleep, that reminds me of like my latest obsession, which is well, it's summertime anyway, so catfishing is just naturally what me and my buddies like to do. But now I figured out that you can use bank poles to where like you use PVC or a fiberglass fence post that's like a fiberglass rod or a tree stake, and put your line out on that with your sinker and everything, and you can set. So in Illinois, it's unattended devices or hooks. You can have 50 of them. So you could set 50 poles out and leave them soak, and you only have to check them every 24 hours. So you could literally just go by, pull on the line. Oh, nothing on it. Okay, keep going down the line. And it's like running a trap line for catfish. And that's
awesome.
That's like my newest thing right now. So me and my buddies just constantly texting back and forth about all the different ways we're going to do it and go about it and tweaking our poles. And I just ordered some fence, some tree stakes, and I'm ready to make some new ones, and I'm super excited about it.
This is when I was in Kentucky. My buddy who lives there, we went jugging.
Oh, I love jugging.
And we caught one, and I think down there, he was allowed like 30, and he used like a PVC pipe with a little rebar inside of it. The PVC's capped. Then he puts like a pool noodle over it, and then like 30 feet of line with a little octopus hook. We cast net for shad.
And use them as bait. Yeah, I love it.
You put the shad on there, and then you just chuck all these things, and then we just like sit.
You float.
The boat
we float with our jugs and like just BS the whole time and watch them. And you could sit there and it's like, oh man, nothing's happening. And all of a sudden you look or turn the flashlight on and look, and that one jug is just whoop, and it's taking off. And you're like, all right, fire up the boat motor, go after it. I built a little gaff, and we gaffed the jug just like you're hooking like a buoy for like a crab pot or something. And then you just start hand lining it in. And next thing you know, it's like, oh man, my finger's bleeding because it cut into you, dug into you because it's, a 12, 14 pounder or whatever. It's so fun.
He sent me some photos of, we caught a small one, but he's caught some ones with his buddies that are like big catfish. Like, that wasn't an easy fish to pull up on just you and your hands in a line. Yeah.
But I'm super excited. That's like my goal this year is to catch like a 50 or 60 pound flathead. Not that I'm going to keep that. That one's going to go back. And the smaller ones we'll keep and eat. But
they're good eating though.
Yep. Super excited.
You guys have any catfish up there in your freshwater?
I don't think we do. No.
Okay. We have very rarely have catfish by me. There's like one lake that I can think of that's in my vicinity that has catfish.
Yeah.
Other than that, I got to go to southern Michigan to get a lot of catfishing in.
Yeah. Yeah, they might be in southern Maine, but I don't think so.
All right, so let me ask you this then. Other than like catfish nuggets, which are delicious, right? What would be a dish, like say Clay and I went fishing with you and you're like, oh, I'm going to prepare something. How would you prepare it? What would you do to make it something special?
Catfish, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I always have lots of bear fat, so it'd be hard not to want to fry it up. But I cook it so infrequently. I don't know that I would have like a go-to thing.
I'm going with the fried and bear fat thing, man. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like coated in acorn flour and fried in bear fat.
Oh, that sounds delicious. Might not look too appealing, but
yeah.
We get that same game butcher. I get about 10 to 15 gallons worth of bear fat every fall.
Holy cow!
Which I rendered down. When I got those 3 buckets last fall, he had already butchered 10 bear and threw away all the fat.
Oh, wow!
And literally, last year was the first time he ever rendered some himself and used it, and was like, wow, this stuff's pretty good. I should actually keep some of it. I was actually getting ready to like, I'll take all of your fat and then just having like a small little like,
Rendering party. Yeah.
well, render it all, but like sell it for like you get $20 a quart probably, but
Wow.
it's I mean I did a pad thai dish today and I started with I cooked fair fry home fries is the best.
Wow.
Um I mean I used to cook with rendered lard mostly, when I want an animal fat, and now I don't even buy it anymore because I still have um probably at least a half gallon or more of fair fat still rendered and ready to go.
Hmm.
So
I really
it's
almost want to try like a curried catfish or something. Somehow like
that's
curry it and make
good.
like a coconut sauce or something. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
too afraid to do it. I don't know. Or like some type of Cajun dish where it's like served over a bed of rice or something with like a tomato based type sauce. I don't know.
You know what? I went to a breakfast place when I lived in Vermont many years ago, and they had like a Creole spiced catfish and egg dish, and it was just sort of like a pan, not deep fried, but like coated in lots of spices like paprika and garlic and thyme and oregano, and it was just pan fried and served with like some eggs and some potatoes.
Hmm.
So curry I did today at work. I made like a red lentil curry with tomato and coconut milk, and catfish would probably be plenty good in that.
I'm gonna have to start experimenting. I think if the bank pulls pan out, I guess I'll have enough catfish to where if I screw up one dish, I won't be super disappointed. But
And I mean,
Yeah.
most of the time it's like screwing up is even like a hard word because it's like a lot of fish is so mild. Like the worst thing you could do with fish is like overcook it.
right,
Like, yeah, that was a little tough. A lot of
Mhm.
fish, it's just gonna flake and fall apart and be like, it's like, flounder, for example, like it's just gonna like fall apart into nothing.
Mhm.
Where like if you cook a halibut and you have a big steak or a swordfish and you like overcook it, yeah, it's definitely like dry and not an enjoyable thing.
yeah,
But you put it in like a soup or a saucy type of thing, curry, and it's like slow cooked, it'll break down a little bit more. But something like catfish, I think, it'll lend itself better to maybe some of those like slow cooked type of things.
awesome.
But
Well, man, um, that sounds amazing. I really got to get out fishing. I've been so busy with like other work that I have not done any fishing this year at all. And it's kind of a bummer. You earlier you're talking about the alewives and it reminded me of the suckers. Like I normally do annual sucker netting.
yeah,
I haven't even gone out and done that. Um
Get
so
out there,
I'm real
Clay. The only way you're going to be able to do it is if you make time and just do it. And
yeah,
that's the worst part. Like I live on a creek, and the fact that I don't even touch that creek 70%, 80% of my time that I'm here at my house. I mean, or 90%, you know what I mean? It's just so many other things going on. Life gets in the way that sometimes I'm just like, you know what? Every once in a while, out of the blue, I'll be like, I need to go do that. And I wade through that creek, take my fly rod, whatever. Last year, I think, or the year before was the first year. I played around with my fly rod and caught some smallies on a little Murdich minnow, and it was just the
nice.
coolest thing in the world. I didn't care if that's one of the smallmouths was like size of a dollar bill, but I had a smile ear to ear because it was the first fish that I caught on a fly rod in that creek. Didn't care. And it's just,
Yeah.
you got to make, even if it's 20 minutes, just make time to go out and do it.
It's interesting because it's like I talk to people like I'll post something on Facebook, and most of Facebook is like old high school friends and family friends, and it's like, oh, I went clamming today, and then a couple days, and then I made this thing with the clams, and then we're netting out, and like I do these things, and like, man, you're incredible. You do all the like, I'm like, my lifestyle is really, I just really love food. I've been cooking for over 30 years. Food is like my primary focus in life. And all my, if you want to call them hobbies or pursuits, are all about food. If I go to vacation to the Florida Keys, like the first thing I'm going to think about is like, is there a boat charter or can I
Nice.
fish from the shore? It's like all the things that I want to do. It's generally always about food. So it's like, I haven't, since I moved off my land or I moved off this other land, I haven't made maple syrup in a couple years, but I've been lucky enough to have a bunch of it. But it's like, first we make maple syrup, then a bunch of wild plants come in, then you go do the alewives, and then it's turkey. And it's like, there's so many pursuits. Like this year, I didn't get a single fiddlehead. I missed it. I couldn't make the time. And it's like, cool, fiddleheads will be back next year.
Yep.
I can't beat myself up over not eating a fiddlehead dish. And if I want to go, I could spend $8 a pound and go buy some. But it's like there's ebbs and flows. And sometimes like I tend to do more fishing in the fall or late summer in the fall because I'm most interested in the mackerel and the stripers. I'd really like to do more fly fishing in the spring, but I just like don't make it work. But there's literally like hardly a week that goes by where it's like right now we're picking a bunch of Rosa rugosa, and drying them so that I could use them later on. And so it's like there's always like you get pulled in all these different ways of like one, family, two, work, and whatever else comes up along the way. And so some years you get things, some years you don't. When you get a huge black trumpet year, you get a really low something else. It's hard to be on every single thing unless you're single and you got a lot of money.
Yeah.
Isn't that the paradox though? It's like you got to be rich to do poor people things.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. But it's like interesting because it's like I never have an interest. Like I'll go foraging with this guy who harvests mushrooms and he'll eat like a meal worth of the mushrooms that he gets. Otherwise, he wants to sell them all.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see these people that they sell them all, like they'll sell them and then they go buy like bread and Budweiser or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, eat those things. But they just see it as like, I can get $3 a pound for these things, $5 a pound.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's always this interesting, thing where like, I don't want to do all this work. So like I could always be thinking about selling them. But if you want to come over, I'll feed you a meal and we'll eat as much as you want kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah. I remember about 10 years ago, I tried to make foraging my full-time job and, I was selling at the farmer's market and I was just doing wild foods. And I remember being disappointed one day that I had only found 4 pounds of chanterelles. And, and I remember thinking to myself, like later that day, like, that is so stupid. Like you found 4 pounds of chanterelles. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But it was just like not enough to really make money, So I was like, all my whole consideration in my head was all about money and not about the fact that I found like, I don't know how many mushrooms that is, but that was like probably well over 100 chanterelles, to make
Yeah.
up 4 pounds.
Yeah.
So.
That's a lot of meals down the road.
Yeah. But either way, man, I don't want to take up your whole entire evening. So, what are you getting into? Do you got any cool things coming up? Are you doing any sort of classes or anything? Or do you just want to send people over to your social media?
I am currently, I have nothing lined up at the moment. I have done this thing where, sort of, you met me in my old homestead. I was working for myself, doing like cooking for Arthur Haynes's wild food classes to catering dinners to doing this like wide assortment of stuff. And then my life transitioned and I felt the need that I need to just like go get a job. And I've sort of been in that workforce for the last 4 years or so. And I've reached a point in the last like 6 months where I wish to go back into that realm of like teaching and more centered around the outdoors in my work as much as I can. So I have hopes to get my Maine guide license in the fall, and Hope to start bringing back some classes and some new offerings like that. Currently, you can go to Instagram, Frankie with a Y underscore gigs, Gigs. I also, on my website, which is my name, frankgiglio.com, I started a Patreon page. So it'll link you right to that. So slowly building myself back into a world of education and in pursuits in that realm. But currently, you can come to Midcoast, Maine, and come see me at the farmers market, where I make food every week and sell at the farmers market. But otherwise, I'm sort of laying low. I have a 4-month-old son, and so I'm just making babies and
Nice.
doing what I can. Yeah.
That's cool.
Nice. All right. Hey, I forgot to ask you one last question. Gotta squeeze it in. What's the worst wild food that you've ever had?
Wild food. The two worst things I ever did with wild food, I don't know what would be the worst one, but I was in Ireland really long time ago, and I was so dumb that I saw this beautiful elderberry, and I went up there and just started just housing the elderberries. And I didn't realize you got to do something with them beforehand. And I, had
Got really sick.
Yep. And then when I was a raw food vegan, it was fiddlehead season. I was like, I don't eat cooked fiddleheads. I'm a raw foodist. And I made like a salad with raw. I mean, I don't think I ate a ton of them, but I definitely ate a bunch raw and didn't feel too good either. So it was being naive. Thankfully it wasn't like didn't cost me my life or anything or a trip to the hospital, but it was like just two of the worst things I'd done with wild food, I guess you could say.
Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on, and I really do hope you get back into it because I remember, 10 years ago, just like seeing this like figure from Maine and like all the promising stuff that you were doing, and I was like, this guy's going to be awesome in the wild food movement, and then I remember you used to have an Instagram account with like so many followers, and I don't know whatever happened to that, but
that basically was like, this person needs to just go away for a while. And
okay.
I think I had about 14,000 followers.
Yeah.
And one day I just hit the delete button and just
no way.
Awesome.
And it's interesting now is I don't regret it. And I really need to like concentrate on my life and my kids at that point in time. But it's like, I think I have like 1,300 followers now. And it's like, it doesn't matter what I post. It's like all crickets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think I could ever build it back up to that without like shaking my booty or something.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting. I had started that page originally, I think in like 2007. So when you look of like 10 years of work, basically 11 years, you built up quite a thing. And now it's just like, it's so hard to get like any momentum.
Yep.
In that realm. So maybe I kicked myself in the
Clay
behind.
knows that struggle. He does some rather cringe-worthy things in order to try and boost that algorithm and to no avail at sometimes. But
well, no, I climb. I'm it's just slow.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, like, what I realized at that point in time, and especially with my work, is it was not solely me, but it was like I found that everything I was doing was with a focus of social media, and I was losing the connection to what I was doing because I was too like. You come across this. I used to have this tree at the back of my property, and it would flush chicken of the woods, and like if you caught it right on time, it was like 30 plus pounds coming off the tree. And you'd get there, and it was like, gotta take a picture first. Can't touch anything. Gotta take a picture. Then you gotta strategically harvest them and put them in the basket right, and then take the picture again. and then get me and my kids and like take the picture again. And then I'm like, how about I just hang out with the tree and just harvest the mushroom?
Yeah.
And it's like, now I have times where I do these things and I don't like take a photo of it and I don't tell anybody about what I did.
Mhm.
Where it was just this time of my life where like everything was a possible new sign up to my newsletter, a new sign up to my course, a new fan. And I just felt disconnected to the things that actually brought me like joy.
Yep.
And so trying to find that balance now in my life now, I'm like trying to find that balance where it's like, but it's like, I'm not just the wild food. I like domesticated plants as well. And I like music and I like other stuff. And I want to be like all inclusive instead of like, I only share this one element of this, my life.
Mhm.
So ebbs and flows, trying to figure it all out, but hopefully be back full steam at some point in my life.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate it because I also am trying to kind of transition to showing more content that's like about, you know, my garden this year. Like I'm making a lot of efforts to grow a lot of crops this year.
Yeah, that's great.
And I'm finding a lot of joy in it and a lot of fun, and it's kind of like not, you know, it's not like tedious, like the same old, like this is the month that I'm going to post about milkweed. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, it's like you're always right there when everyone starts talking about ramps.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know at this point in time, everybody is going to be doing these public announcements of how you're supposed
one
to
leaf.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, do whatever you got to do. Like, think about the plant and what works. And it's like the hanging of the venison. It's like, do what works for you where you are.
Yeah.
That's it. You
Yeah.
know, I've seen the island where Arthur harvests from in Maine, and it's like a 70-acre island that's like all leaf.
Wow.
Like if you went and harvested a garbage bag of dug up ramps, I don't think it's going to make that much of a dent.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen where I am, where I went this year, and like I literally just like see the trenches, and there's like every year there's been less and less. And I don't know if it's just I used to go there and people trampled over the leeks because they didn't know what it was and they only went to fiddleheads. And in the last several years, somebody has caught wind of what that plant is, and they're just taking us. It's like just the numbers have gone down. So it's like what I see. And then I've been in areas where there's like, there's like 12. There's not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things of like, I don't need like everybody on Instagram to try to teach me how to.
They should teach people how to think for themselves instead of the whole group think thing, right, Clay? I mean, that's
That's an important point, though, what you just said. So we really appreciate you coming on, and I hope you'd be open to coming back on again in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, yeah. You got it.
All right. Talk to you later, man.
Peace out.
And once again, thank you so much for listening to the Publicly Challenged podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please subscribe on whatever platform it is you're listening to. Also, if you could leave a review, that would help us out. And you can check us out on Instagram or at publiclychallenged.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening to the show.
You want to succeed, you want to fish, you want to be one of the greatest.
Tune in to West Marine's Life on the Water, presented by Costa Custom Boats, every Saturday night from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV.
You'd think, with four of us spread out on a tiny island, that the task of tagging a whitetail would not be a big thing. But, as I've learned, no matter where I've been, whitetails can be damn tricky.
Pursuing wild game in wild places. Tune in to Hunt Stand Presents Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Waypoint TV, the destination for outdoor entertainment.